You're listening to the Platte River Bard.
After our last podcast with the director of our town, Arthur Feinsod, this will be our next installment of 6 additional podcasts, which we will be releasing over the next several days. These will consist of members of the cast and crew of our town.
Our guest today is actor Shawn Jain, who plays the role of Dr. Gibbs.
Shawn has many theater credits to his name all around the country, and he has studied theater abroad. You may have seen him in such film and TV credits as We Crashed from Apple TV+, Blue Bloods from CBS, Billions on Showtime, Girls 5 Eva from Peacock, Gossip Girl from HBO Max, A Ring for Christmas from UPTV, and several episodes in the series Thespian from Amazon. We know you'll enjoy hearing the stories of each of these talented artists. Hello, and welcome to the Platte River Bard. This is Chris Berger.
And I'm Sherry Berger.
And today we are here with Shawn K. Jain. He is one of the actors in our town over here at the Nebraska Repertory Theatre, and he is playing Dr. Gibbs in our town. Thank you very much, Shawn, for talking with us today.
Yes,
It's lovely
welcome.
to be here. Yeah,
Welcome. Well, we saw the show on Wednesday night. It was fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
So
Thank
we were
you.
really excited to have this opportunity to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
And so you are here from New York?
I am here from New York.
Okay.
All right.
Now, of course, you were born and raised in California,
yeah.
living in New York now. I got to ask, what got you here to Nebraska for our town at the Rep?
Yeah. I think that happens with a lot of New York actors. The casting for theater all over the country is done out of New York. It's one of the reasons,
Okay.
When I finished grad school in acting, I was choosing between LA and New York, as most, I think, actors do. And LA, there's really not much theater, and there certainly isn't much casting for theater. I mean, there is some, but not compared to New York. And that was one of the reasons why I chose to go to New York, because I wanted to continue to do theater. And so I did not know anyone in Nebraska. I did not have any relationship prior to. I kind of did an open audition, and got a call back and was cast.
Oh,
so,
excellent.
Yeah.
So you left a kind of a businessy job in order to do acting full time. You were able to
did.
do that.
So you're sort of in almost your second life
I
here.
am.
Yeah.
I thought I would
Excellent.
never act again, honestly.
Really?
I mean, I acted in high school and college.
Well, and you got your MFA, I saw,
Yes,
in acting.
That's right, but I didn't get that until I think I started when I was in my early 30s.
Started in your early 30s.
Yeah.
Good for you. So
Yeah.
you went back.
I went back. So I had a career in PR and marketing for 7-8 years in New York and DC. And I really just started missing acting. And so I started acting again professionally. I started taking classes. And then I went to grad school for acting. And, I decided that I just couldn't see myself doing a desk job for the rest of my life. And I kind of made a decision. I was like, well, if I really want to pursue this seriously, I want to get more training. I want to be in an environment where I'm just doing that full time. I didn't do a theater BFA program. I didn't do a conservatory program for undergrad. So for grad school, that was really I was privileged and lucky enough to be able to do that, and it was honestly amazing.
So at Berkeley, you were studying marketing.
I was studying political science and Spanish, and I thought, and I was acting on the side. I was in shows sometimes, but I thought if you would have asked me junior, senior year of college, I would have been like, no, I'm not going to act anymore.
It's just a hobby. Yeah.
And I honestly really thought I was done with acting. And then it kind of gnawed at me that I wasn't on stage and I wasn't performing anymore. And I felt like something was really missing. And when I was in DC in my late 20s and I was working at the ACLU and I started taking classes, and then it just was, I just had to do it.
Wow.
You missed it, yeah.
Did you go to a production and that was like the moment that you decided?
I started acting again around 2015, 2014 in
okay.
DC.
Okay.
Then I went to grad school in 2016, finished in
I
2018.
see.
So this was all well before the pandemic. But I don't know if there was a specific moment that really kind of triggered it. I think it was just sort of a general, I'm kind of bored with life. Sort of a thing. Like, really, it was you kind of like something. I just really missed the outlet that I think for so many youth who do theater, it provides for them. And I think I thought I had kind of moved on from that, but in reality, you know, and I'm very glad that I had that other career, because I think it's so helpful in many ways, and to have a life experience. Like, I'm very glad I didn't go and pursue acting when I was 22, because I think it's beneficial to have life experience and to go back after you've done other things. So I just kind of felt like I had to do it.
Wow.
Well, and I'm sure working in marketing, PR, and stuff like that is helpful.
Yes.
Being an actor.
Yes.
Because now you get to do it for you.
Absolutely.
You are now your product.
That's right. The business side of it is, you know, I think for a lot of actors it's a challenge, and even for me it's a challenge, but I think I have a leg up because I have that experience, and I write well. I know about branding. You know, that stuff is all very helpful because there's a lot of actors. There are a lot of actors.
Yeah. You also have this in common with Craig, because we were kind of looking at and us, because we're like, oh, maybe we can get some ideas from them, you know, for the podcast. You could give us some good advice.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I thought that was kind of interesting, and I do think that marketing and advocacy and theater kind of, they have the same basic fabric.
They do. I mean, it's funny. I was just reading a book on kind of the history of theater by Isaac Butler called The Method. The history of it's really a kind of a history of method acting, but also it really ends up being kind of a history of, from Stanislavski onward, the theater industry in the U.S. and how, you know, there was a time where theater, I think, was more intertwined with advocacy, with pushing social norms, perhaps more than it is now. I think it's kind of settled into being sort of, sadly, kind of an art form of the elite, which is not ideal.
Right.
You know, I mean, I would love to kind of see it be more of something that's from the community and something that is tied to kind of a political project, which is right now, theater is unfortunately not that. But, you know.
A lot of productions, though, are kind of geared that way.
Yes, and I think
smaller.
And I think this production, you know, is really beautiful because it. Yeah, I think, you know, for me as an actor, you know, we want the audience to leave the theater a changed person from when they entered.
Yeah. And
I hope, you know, this play achieves that in some level. You know, it inspires something in you. It makes you think about something differently, and you know, ideally that causes something to change in your life, and that's, you know, I think what we all strive for. And I think this play, you know, there's a reason why Our Town is done so much and why it's been done for so long. It's very simple on the page. The text is very deceptively simple, but it's actually very hard to do a production of Our Town well.
Yeah.
Yes, I can imagine, and I was really struck by that when I read it for the first time, and not when I saw the old William Holden movie, but I watched because your production that you're in was the first production I ever seen live.
Okay,
but I did see the play version that Paul Newman was in, that was available
with Jane Curtin
to watch. Yeah, and Jane Curtin,
yeah.
And this is something I want to ask, because this was so. Had you ever done a production of Our Town before?
I have.
You have?
Yes.
Did you play the same character?
No.
Was it different?
I played Constable Warren, which is a smaller townsperson character.
Right.
But it's so interesting, and that was actually in 2018, so it wasn't even that long ago. But that director had in many ways a similar vision to Arthur. I think in a lot of ways it was a very truncated production. It was there was no intermission.
Oh, okay. Just went straight through. Okay.
Went straight through, but it was only about 90 minutes, so there was a lot of cutting. But I think you know, that play also was not, that production was not done with a live orchestra, but there was musical interludes. There was a tremendous amount of sound design, and so it's interesting because I think both productions are kind of take a very, very different course, but end up in a very similar place in terms of the audience experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just that Act 3 is so moving, I think, and if it's done right.
Yes.
And I think that the music that we have from Craig with the live orchestra really helps.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now I'm not sure if I could watch this again.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to miss it now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now that I've heard it.
Yeah.
It was really that. It just felt integral. Like it didn't felt like, oh well, this is a drop in or this. It was everything went.
I think that's right. Yeah, and I mean, I've seen productions of Our Town that don't have music, and there's so many ways to make this play work. I think that's the beauty of it. Is it's such a the text leaves so much to explore and for the actors to kind of mine. And in that sense, I mean, we rehearsed this for 5 weeks, and if we had the time, I had the privilege of studying in Russia when I was in grad school for 4 months.
Yes.
And there they rehearse for years sometimes, productions, and really explore. And because actors are salaried, the entire structure is different than here. And this is the kind of play where you could do that. I mean, you could really, it would get old, but not really. If you really you would find new things. It's an endlessly fascinating play.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. You guys did really a fantastic job with it. I was really quite taken with it. And the music, I thought, just really kind of put it over the top into something kind of really special.
Yeah.
That you don't get to see very often.
Yeah.
Everybody was just spot on, perfect.
Well, and I think that's what confuses people when they hear that there's music. They're gonna
think it's a musical.
Yeah. So it's good to kind of
it's like
reiterate
a soundtrack
that
to a movie.
Exactly.
Very soundtrack.
Yeah, which I kind of wish plays would do more. I've heard only a couple of plays now that have incorporated music. This being one of them.
Yeah.
And I think it really adds quite a bit. It adds quite a bit.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, music is, there's
and especially you guys working with it.
Yes.
And timing with it.
Yes.
And then and also maybe even being able to use it.
Totally, 100%.
With your performance.
Yeah, I mean, we rehearsed for about a week or two without the music. And then when the music was first brought in, it was very jarring at first.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you don't want to play into it where you're kind of going along. I mean, that would be atrocious and very difficult to watch. But you also can't really play against it. You have to let it just affect you. Yeah. And it does change your performance. And then it was funny because when we started Tech, we actually didn't have the music again. And the play felt so bland.
I bet.
It was so dry
when
we took it away. And then the orchestra came back and it was alive again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's really been a privilege to have that. It's a very, very unique experience. And I wonder, and I have no idea if they plan to have a larger life with it in terms of, attaching the score to future productions of Our Town. I have no idea, but I think it certainly would be worthwhile.
It would absolutely be.
So the production that you did in 2018 didn't have any music in it.
It did have music, but it did not have a live it did not have a live orchestra.
Okay.
It had the director curated music, and it was wonderful also, and it was wonderful in a very different way.
Yeah.
But music is so powerful, and it's a way to manipulate the audience's emotions in a way, and I think that's kind of the director's job, and it's in some ways it's a shortcut to it, but it also is an enhancement and can really help drive home without kind of hitting you over the head. It can really drive home and help the audience focus, which is great.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you went to try out for this, did you let them know that you were interested in Mr. Gibbs, or how did your Dr. Gibbs?
Yeah, Dr. Gibbs. Yes, he is a doctor. How dare you? I'm trying to remember. I think I was called back for Dr. Gibbs and Simon Stimson. And I read for both. And that's kind of commonly how it is.
Yeah.
You get submitted, you have an agent or manager and they submit you for something, and then you get called in for a role. Typically you don't really get to choose. I mean, it's like you could say I'm only interested in this role, and then maybe you get to audition for it, or maybe you don't.
Right.
But Dr. Gibbs is it's funny because I was relatively recently in a production, so you're always I think back to the person who played that role.
Yeah.
And you don't want to just be copying that, of course. But it was really fun to explore, and Arthur was very helpful in finding. I think I found a lot of interesting things that I didn't anticipate I would find in kind of crafting this character and who he is, and it's very different than the the way that it was played in the production I was in previously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, and I bet working with Arthur on this, since he is such a
Scholar.
was quite a
treat,
an experience. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Any and all questions, I'm sure, were answered probably before you even had them.
Totally. And it was very, he was very good about kind of taking, which is what all very good directors, all great directors do this. They take what you bring and they kind of, based on that, they see things, and they, if someone else would have been in the role would be very different.
Yes.
It's and that's, they see things that you bring to the first read and the first couple of rehearsals, and they kind of help you craft it based on that.
And he helps carve out sort of where you're coming from, as opposed to
and helps kind of think about what we talk about.
Exactly.
And when we talk about kind of given circumstances and what's, and again, Thornton Wilder gives kind of almost like little hints for what's happening. It's a little bit of a scavenger hunt in some ways. There's a lot of names mentioned that aren't on stage.
Yes.
A lot of people that we don't see.
Sort of world building taking place. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is one of the neat parts of that script that I always thought was cool, is they world build and you don't see. They just they talk about it.
Exactly.
And it gives you this bigger sense of this huge world that you're in, which is such a neat contrast to the play. And you guys do it as well. Not a lot of props.
Yes.
Not a lot of set pieces. Not very minimalist.
Yes.
Only when they really matter.
Oh yeah, only sort of very important things. Was yours very, scenery light, prop light when you did it the first time?
First time I did it, it was not prop light, but it was scenery light. But the prop light, I believe, is specified by Thornton Wilder, the miming. So that is typically done.
Yes.
But I've seen, and I saw the, is it Daniel Cromer, the one in New York that was on for several years.
Oh, yes.
About 10 years ago. And that one was full of props. And that was a beautiful production as well.
Okay.
Yes, but the miming, and that was, tricky to kind of nail. And I feel like we still could work on it more. But I think we made a lot of progress. And I think also one thing that Arthur really wanted us to do was to highlight the difference between the relationship between Mr. and Mrs. Webb and Dr. and Mrs. Gibbs, and how we're very different families.
Contrast.
Yeah.
And that was something that I think is unique, and I don't remember having that memory of the distinction between the two families in previous productions I've either been a part of or seen.
So what is next on the horizon?
I was going to say, you got this is going, and then you're done.
TV.
Done TV,
you've done a fair amount of TV here recently.
Recently, yeah, and I'm going to go back to New York and keep auditioning, and of course, hope to book other stuff. I've been doing audiobooks, which has been great.
Right.
So I've relatively recently got into that. I was actually recording one earlier today upstairs. So
excellent.
But I think because of the pandemic, when there was no theater, I started to focus a lot more on camera and voice acting, and the pandemic was awful and has been awful, but of course, in some ways, it presented an opportunity to focus on those areas that I was less focused on, and so it's been beneficial in the way that I've really been able to start getting traction in other areas. And so, and TV is such a fertile space now. I think it's the golden age of TV. The roles that I think that probably excite me the most, if I'm being totally honest, are on TV. I mean, the work, the auditions that I get for TV are generally very exciting.
There's so much that's going on. It seems like a lot of the stuff that we used to see at the movies has just moved to TV now.
Absolutely.
And that's where it sort of lives, which is fine with me. But God, there's so much of it now.
There's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much content. There's a lot of opportunity. And
really
so that's exciting, and I'm excited to get back to that. And if there's other theater opportunities that come, of course, I'm all ears.
Excellent.
Well, I bet it's actually really good for you in a emotional way to be able to still do theater be able to do the set things, because there's such different worlds.
There's such different worlds, and this. Yeah, it's been really wonderful to do this play, and one of the things I've enjoyed the most is more than half the cast is undergraduate students.
Yes.
And they have such a fun energy, and it's really nice to, I've become kind of close to some of them, and they're obviously like significantly younger than I am, but it's really lovely, and it's nice to build that rapport, and that's, it's you spend a lot more time with each other than you do if you're just going to be on a TV set for a day or a couple days, where you're kind of in and out. This, you're really together for a lot of time, and that's really lovely. And it's for me. I mean, I want a career that's artistically meaningful, and that means doing different things, not just TV and film, but also theater. And Our Town is, I would always consider doing it in the future. Because it's such a I know that there's so much to explore, and for me it's like Chekhov, or it's like something where it's just like it's relatively simple on the page, but there's just so much there, and every production is going to be different and challenging in a way that's very different than plays that are like on the page challenging, like Shakespeare or something.
Right. Yes, in a completely different way.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to meet you. And I'm so excited. I need to watch some of the things you've been in.
Yes.
I saw some things, but not all of them.
We saw some clips, yes.
So that's exciting, because the main thing that you're doing is Thespian, right? Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Thespian is a show on Amazon.
That's Amazon, yes.
And that I've been in maybe 4 or 5 episodes of it. It's a fun show. I play this wacky director in it.
Yeah,
excellent.
And it's fun. And TV and film is very joyous and very fun in a different way than theater. So.
Sure, completely different. Cool, Absolutely. Thespians on Amazon.
That's right.
That'll be right up everybody's alley, I think.
I think it will be too.
Yes, that's right. People who listen to this, yes.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Well, Shawn K. Jain.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure
so
to meet
much.
you. It really is.
That's right. He is in our town. He's Dr. Gibbs over here at the Nebraska Repertory Theatre. Come on down and see him. Holy cow, is this a great production?
It is.
Thank you very much, Shawn.
Thank you.
Of course.
Our Town is directed by Arthur Feinsod and dedicated to the memory of his late friend and colleague, Tony Hall, who directed Dr. Feinsod's play Table 17 in 2007.
Our Town opened on April 13th and runs through April 24th. You can get your tickets now at nebraskarep.org.
Thank you for listening and supporting the arts in the Platte River area and beyond. Please subscribe to our podcast so you are sure to catch all of our future episodes, and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Music for this podcast was used with permission by Screaming Skull Productions. See you next time on the Platte River Bard.